Developed by Ubisoft Bordeaux and published by Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed Mirage is the 13th installment to the Assassin's Creed franchise following Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It initially released on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S on the 5th of October 2023, and iOS and iPadOS on the 6th of June 2024. While Mirage didn't sell as well as Valhalla did with 20 million copies, it still achieved some sort of success with 5 million copies within 3 months of its release. Before we continue, please be advised that there will be spoilers ahead, so watch at your own risk. Without further ado, let's get into the mythological lore behind Assassin's Creed Mirage. Set during the Islamic Golden Age in Baghdad during the Common Era of 861, in a time of extreme internal instability, the game takes place 10 years prior to the events of Valhalla, exploring the backstory of Basim ibn Ishaq and his early life. At the beginning of the game, William Miles introduces us to Basim.
You asked me once about this memory. I lied. I told you it was lost. I worried the wrong lesson would be learned. But this man lived many lives, and he has much to teach us. Of course, when he came to us, he was little more than a common thief, scrambling to survive on the streets of Baghdad, dreaming of a better future. Not just for himself, but for all those he saw suffering on the margins. For while he lived in a golden age, at the heart and the height of the Abbasid Caliphate, scratch its gilded surface and you'd find a rot beneath. The Order of the Ancients fought to rise and spread their cruelty through the land. The Hidden Ones, as we were known then, resisted, striking at our enemy from the shadows, an eternal struggle. Centuries ago, he was at its heart, Basim ibn Ishaq. He honored the creed, he challenged it, so must we. We have it in all of us to mistake the shadows we walk for the light we serve. The time may come when we will be tested as he was. I fear that time is coming soon.
Inside Basim's mind, he encounters a supernatural creature called a Jinni. He is awoken from the nightmare by his companion Nihal. Both himself and Nihal are street thieves in the town of Anbar. They don't have a lot of money to their name, so they do contracts to get some cash to be able to eat. One person they get their contracts from is a guy named Dawish, and their latest contract is from the Hidden Ones, from the logo shown by Basim. They go see Dawish and Basim asks about the contract. He says they're after a shipping ledger. He grabs it and returns it to Dawish. But when he returns it, he meets Roshan, who was a member of the Hidden Ones. The shipping ledger contains information on a chest she's after, something of significant value. As she leaves, Basim attempts to convince her to let him go after the chest she's looking for. She says 2 of her best men died in pursuit of it. Basim, standing on business, doubles down, continuing to convince her to no avail when she leaves Dawish's home. Not pleased with the answer he got, he becomes determined to prove himself to Roshan and go after the chest they are seeking, which is at the Winter Palace. Nihal accompanies him on the journey while they get into the palace undetected. When they get inside, we can see the chest that Roshan and her group are after, but because of the weight of it, they can only steal the contents of it. 5 golden masked men enter the room to inspect the contents of the chest. The most powerful man in Baghdad, Al-Mutawakkil, asks if he can see the contents of the chest for himself, but they seem offended by the question when they confront him and tell him to say he saw nothing and the meeting never happened. Once they leave the room, Basim finds a window of opportunity to open the chest for himself.
All right, Basim. Open, snatch, run.
Basim, hurry. Basim!
Give me that! No! La!
Do you have any idea what they will do to me?
Please, I am sorry.
This is your fault.
Stop! Please!
You thieving little rat.
No!
Run!
Nihal, wait! Father! Get that boy!
He escapes the palace and returns home. He has another nightmare before he is awoken by Roshan. She asks him what happened, but he is silent. He eventually says he doesn't know how to explain what he saw, that the object did something to him and he was somewhere else, cold and frightened. He says he was only trying to help and not cause trouble. Roshan says they gotta get him out of the city, but he refuses and says he needs to find Nihal. She reiterates and says the Caliph's guards are looking for a young thief of his description and won't stop until he's found and put in a grave. She gives him another chance and leaves to go find Nihal and Derwish. He gets to Derwish's place when he discovers guards have murdered and tied up innocent civilians onto wooden poles to send a message. Nihal runs up to him and tries to comfort him by telling him to look away, but the sight of the murders angers him and he blames Nihal for the deaths, resulting in him hoping he never sees her again and heads to the docks to meet Roshan.
Stop! Is it him?
I think so.
Good enough.
Move.
What are you doing?
Don't think.
Two months later, Basim is in Alamut training with the Alamut Brotherhood under the mentorship of Roshan. He does a leap of faith, but it doesn't meet the requirements to be initiated. On their way back to camp, Basim asks Roshan, how does the most powerful man in Baghdad bend a knee to a group of masked individuals when he had no idea on the contents of the chest or who the members were in general? Roshan explains the Order have held power to men and their empires for centuries, by convincing them they hold natural power to the world. The Khalifa was their puppet and the entire Caliphate is under their influence. Roshan tells Basim to go see Fulad and they'll continue their training later. Upon seeing Fulad, he introduces Basim to a bird named Enkidu, a bird with great intelligence. Fulad sends him off to retrieve some leather for Rebecca, and whilst he's on the task, he overhears Rayhan and a member of the Tahirid emissary talking.
The Caliph wishes to nullify the rebels, and if you persist in giving them support, we cannot assure you protection from any Caliphate response.
The rebels supply us with information in Baghdad. Without them, we are blind.
Be that as it may, Governor Muhammad is very committed to showing that he can end this rebellion swiftly.
I do not doubt that.
I came to warn you. Things are moving fast in Baghdad. You may have to act sooner than expected.
I hear you, Aban.
Basim explains the meaning behind the conversation.
So the Tahirids who govern these lands are the only thing standing between Alamut and a full-scale attack. A fragile peace. How long will it last?
He delivers the quest item to her and receives a dagger and sword, completing his assassin outfit. He heads back to training to spar with Roshan. After sparring, she calls it a day, but he wants to keep going. She says to be patient and don't rush your training. Later on in the evening, the boys are sitting around the campfire when Basim rocks up and is informed by Rebecca that Hidden One's member Ahmed is leaving tomorrow for the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. He is resuming his work in the science field with his brothers, but will still fulfill his duty as a Hidden Ones member by being the eyes and ears among the scholars. Rebecca gets full-eyed to tell Basim the story behind the feather.
Our tradition of the feather comes from Egypt. They represent the feathers of Ma'at. The feathers of the heron were dipped in the blood of the targets. These would be left for the Lord of the Duat to judge. It is important we remain humble and know our place in the process. We are messengers of justice, and not the final judges.
Once he finishes, No walks over to the campfire asking if anyone wants to come on patrol with him. Basim accepts the offer to keep himself moving and warm. They get to a watch point where No's bird shows up and flies down to the ground when it sees something. When they get to the other side, they discover they're being invaded by mercenaries and swiftly take care of the issue. Basim discovers the sword of one of the mercenaries is linked to a sword that is used by a mercenary from Baghdad. Rayhan asks Basim how he knows the men were from Baghdad. Basim says he grew up around those men and saw that make of sword many times up close. But of course, as Roshan says,
behind every mercenary is a man who gave them their orders.
Rayhan forms a plan to return to Baghdad and seek Ali ibn Muhammad's help. Roshan calls him a dangerous and delusional fool. Rayhan somewhat agrees, but he's the only ally they've got. No offers to return to Baghdad and seek Ali's help. The boys wish him good luck. Basim continues his training, from sparring with Roshan to trying to get used to his bird Enquiries. After some time, he finally learns patience and stillness. Roshan now believes he's ready for initiation. He meets Fullard at the cave entrance and says how much of an honor it's been to watch Basim progress on his path to becoming a Hidden One. Basim changes into the Hidden One's outfit and makes his way to the altar.
Basim ibn Ishaq, are you ready to leave your life behind and walk the path of shadows?
I am.
Are you ready to give up who you once thought you were? Ready to sacrifice everything you held close?
I am.
Never forget the tenets you have sworn to uphold. Stay your blade from the flesh of the innocent. Hide in plain sight. Never compromise the Brotherhood. Then, out of the dark, you will come into the light. And from the light, you will return to the dark.
Basim ibn Ishaq, you now follow in the Eagle's path.
Roshan challenges him to a fight with him, now officially a Hidden One. During the fight, No returns to the camp injured and seeks help. They notice he came unprepared and left Baghdad in a hurry. No says the order took Ali during the night and took him hostage. Now with Ali gone, they're blind and have no idea what the order is up to. Rayhan orders Basim, Roshan and Fullard to head to Baghdad. They arrive and Basim meets Roshan at the Habiyah Bureau. Roshan couldn't find anything helpful on Ali's whereabouts, but saw that Nur was in contact with one of Ali's closest allies within the Rebels Collective, Beshi. She says he's a dock worker and to go find out what he knows about Ali's disappearance. It's not a strong lead, but it's a start. He meets Beshi and he asks Basim if he has a blade other than the one he carries in his arm. Basim asks if he's setting off to find Ali, when Basim responds saying not yet, since the rest of his men are being held hostage. Basim frees the men being held hostage and returns to Beshi when he and the rebels reveal some very interesting information.
You are a hound, Basim.
I am only doing my part. Together, we will see the end of what ails this city.
Look no further than Al-Ghul, the man only spoken of and never seen.
What can you tell me about him?
He takes enemies of the Caliphate and makes them dig in the desert. Prisoners, rebels, laborers. In search of what? I do not know. These men were captured with Ali weeks ago and were destined to perish beneath the sands.
Not Ali. He's been taken elsewhere. They marked and separated us. Ali was in another group. They wanted to question him about you and your friends.
Can you show me this marking?
What are you thinking?
Ali and Noor got close enough to Al-Ghul that he took notice. If we find Ali, he can lead us to Al-Ghul.
It is but one path. There may be another. I will go where these men were being sent to dig, and pose as a captive.
Are you mad?
Only stubborn.
With more info on Nour's contact, Basim speaks to Roshan to find out more about his particular interest in the Shari district. Roshan says that the district is in quiet support of the rebels and that may be where Nour's contact dwells. Basim heads to the dyeing factory where he reunites with an old friend.
Darwish!
Basim? Azizi? I thought you were dead.
I feared the same.
Darwish reveals Ali didn't disappear, he was captured. He was taken to a guardhouse weeks ago. Basim leaves and follows up on the lead. He eavesdrops on some guards talking and they mention some tension between the guard and a scribe. Basim retrieves the prisoner records and it reveals a list of prisons. He returns to the bureau to regroup with Roshan and Fulad. Roshan learns that Ali was brokering a deal with Nour to supply the rebels in exchange for his help. The order is definitely an annoyance, but he has his eyes set on the Caliphates and he'd want them to honor the deal. Basim reveals their first target to be Al-Ghul, who uses prisoners and laborers to dig around Baghdad. Amidst Ali and his men being captured, Ali was taken somewhere else, and if the book is correct, he is held at Damascus Gate prison. Basim meets Fulad at the prison and he shares a heartbreaking story about his dad during his childhood at the prison.
It was from here that I would fly my kite high over these prison walls. It had a unique pattern, you see. One I stitched together with my father when I was just a boy. So here I came, day after day, hoping for a gust that would take it high enough so that he would see it and know that I was here. I do not know if he ever did.
I know this pain, and I am sorry for yours.
I am not. Such pains forge our paths. Remind us of who we are, who we can be.
They observe the entrance to the prison and notice it's basically unbreachable. So their options are to either bribe the guards to look the other way or seek help from the merchants. Basim offers a bribe to a merchant to allow him to pose as one of the aides to get in the prison undetected. The merchant accepts and he enters the prison successfully undetected. On the way to freeing Ali, he overhears guards talking and it's revealed he's in the dungeon below the prison being interrogated. He comes across an injured civilian in the jail and says the jailer did it to him who's beneath them. Basim finds the entrance to the dungeon and frees Ali.
And you are?
Basim, friend to Noor. Let us save the details for another time. We need to get you out of here.
Slow yourself, ya Azizi. We cannot leave, not yet. I need to get into the guards' quarters.
What for?
It is Al-Ghul you are after, is it not? The guards of this prison serve him. They take shifts escorting groups of prisoners to dig sites under the cover of night. If we can find their orders, we may know where Al-Ghul is going next. Is that reason enough?
Stay close to me, stay low, and do not...
Oh, come, Basim. I know how to defend myself.
Really? What with?
Let's try not to get in each other's way.
They get to the guards' quarters and Ali finds the book to help them locate Al-Ghul. Basim tells him to give it to Roshan while he distracts the guards. Basim regroups with Ali at the watermill where the rebels are and he gives us more info on Al-Ghul. On top of ordering prisoners to dig around the region of Baghdad, he's also buying migrant laborers from a promissory note that Ali took from the prison. For additional clarity, a promissory note is a written unconditional promise from one party, usually the maker or issuer, to pay a specific sum of money to another party, the payee, on demand or at a fixed future date. Roshan questions who would be making the arrangements without raising suspicion, when Ali mentions Masood al-Yaqub, who runs the soap mills of Baghdad. The conversation is then abruptly interrupted when Beshi enters the room injured and in pain. He posed as a prisoner for one of Al-Hul's dig sites, but unfortunately found nothing in his search. That didn't stop the guards from trying to silence him and the others though, he just barely made it out. But he did find out Al-Hul is going to be at the Caravanserai, which is where Masood is likely to be if he's orchestrating purchases for migrant slaves. Basim is ready to take on Al-Hul. Before he enters the compound, Roshan gives him the feather that Fullad talked about at the beginning of the game. In order to get to Al-Hul, he needs to lure him out. So Basim talks to one of the laborers in the compound and he says how deceived they were with false promises given to just be a slave for Al-Hul. He says Basim can help by grabbing the deed from the man who brought the laborers to relieve them of their duties. Once they're relieved, Al-Hul catches wind of this and makes an appearance.
Subhanakallah.
Turn your hate inward, Masood. It is your wickedness that has led you here.
Wickedness? To whom? The unenlightened? The feeble who have cast their lot? It is our divine will to rule over them. Our duty to exact their contribution.
Contribution? To what?
To what could be. The very knowledge of which lies buried beneath these sands.
Some things are meant to stay that way.
No. These are gifts, destined to be recovered. They speak to us, as you well know.
Me?
Oh yes, a hidden one you may be, but not just.
Basim learns a new move and he spots Nihal across the way from him before Roshan pulls him away. Basim begins to question why the Order are trying so hard to protect the relic they found. He then opens up to Roshan about the nightmares he's been having involving the Jinni. He was fine during the training process in Alamut, but once he assassinated Al-Hul, it made a return. Basim wishes to seek Nihal and ask Roshan permission to take temporary leave, but Roshan basically says not to worry and to do what you need to do. Basim heads back to his hometown of Anbar and reunites with Nihal. She shows Basim a symbol on the wall. Basim seems to know the symbol from somewhere when Nihal says the symbol is from the relic they attempted to steal back at the palace. Nihal's become obsessed with figuring it out since it seems to be calling to her. Returning to Roshan, she says Fullad went scouting while Basim took care of Al-Hul and found dwellings in other areas of Baghdad to expand the Bureau's base of operations. Basim heads to one of the dwellings and meets Tabid, who was reading some poetry by Lady Arab. Basim starts going on about how he and Nihal used to read her poetry all the time as kids, even sneaking into the House of Wisdom to spend hours reading up on jinns and gods. Tabid starts talking about the House of Wisdom and how it's not what it once was. Basim, confused, asks about Ahmed. Tabid has no knowledge of his whereabouts since they haven't heard from him in a week and he hasn't been at the House of Wisdom. Basim goes to investigate and meets a man by the name of Fazl, one of the elders at the House of Wisdom. There was a fire that burned some of the books that was luckily contained and taken care of. He suspects the enemies of the Khalifa were behind the attack. Basim asks him about Ahmed, and while he confirmed his position at the library, he also hasn't spoken to or heard from him recently either. Basim speaks to Karaman, who tells him Ahmed's office is behind him. Basim heads into his office and begins investigating, starting with the drawing of a diagram, some measuring tools, a stack of books on the table for Ahmed, and finally more diagram drawings to confirm it is his office. He speaks to Ahmed's assistant, Hamid, to find out more information, and he says he may be able to help.
Guards, help! I'm under attack!
What? You lie!
Once Basim takes care of the guards and survives the trap, he interrogates Hamid on what the hell happened. He comes clean and says he has no clue on Ahmed's whereabouts and was told to keep people away from the House of Wisdom's dig site by a member of the Order. The dig site is all the way out in the wilderness outside of the city. Basim heads to the excavation site and finds a special chest that contains a letter to Ahmed from Dr. Hassan. With the lead on Ahmed's whereabouts, Basim heads to the location to seek Dr. Hassan, and when he gets inside the doctor's office, he notices a logo from the Order. But it's not enough evidence to link him to anything, until he finds a letter addressed to Al-Rabisu, signed Al-Azdaha. Basim eavesdrops on some doctors in the courtyard and learns that the doctor keeps his private laboratory locked. He gets to the rooftop and finds a broken window, climbs in, then assassinates the doctor. Shortly after the assassination, Ahmed walks in.
Basim, what happened here?
Where were you, Ahmed?
I was around. I'm always around. Would you tell me what happened?
Are you aware this man works for the Order?
He called on me a few weeks ago after they found something in the desert. An ancient mechanism of some sort. They needed me to...
And you asked no questions?
I never ask questions when it comes to work. Do you?
Tell me about this mechanism.
It opens a path in the mind. A path to the ancient world. This mechanism somehow seems to open the doors of perception.
Have you seen this for yourself?
No, but I heard the stories of those who have. They are lost, Basim, because they think what they saw is reality. They think they belong to this ancient world. I knew nothing about the Order being involved. If I did, I would have come to you. I got caught up. You know me. You know me, Basim.
You will leave this place and return to the Bureau. I will not tell a soul if you do not.
How shameful it is that knowledge always ends up in the wrong hands. Isn't it, Basim?
Basim meets Rebecca and learns that the district that the Bureau occupies is tainted by strong corruption. Basim suspects the doing of the Order. Rebecca goes on to mention there's a grand auction happening at the Dairat al-Mal. The event is of course invite only, but there's a high chance one of their targets will be in attendance. Basim asks Roshan what it was like for her the first time she took a life. She says she can't recall, but it was someone she knew well, before she became a hidden one. She refuses to let his death haunt her, and it's why she considers herself the daughter of no one. While they're heading to the market or the souk, she mentions some guards came through recently and started breaking things. The cause of it is unconfirmed, but they're also seizing foreign goods, specifically from a place called the East Road. Basim gets a wave of nostalgia when he says he believes he knows someone who can help and that it's been a while since any interaction. Basim meets with an old friend by the name of Kong. Kong has trust issues and doesn't believe it's him. He quizzes Basim but still doesn't remember him until it seems like he's bantering and recognizes him finally. They catch up a little bit when Kong mentions he's in some tension with a fellow merchant who's reporting him every chance he gets. He asks Basim to retrieve his confiscated box of goods, which he agrees to do. So he gets Kong's box of goods and returns it to him. Kong mentions he's selling his goods at the grand auction. Basim replies and says he's trying to get in and asks if he can help. Kong says he can, but of course has another request first. His goods are being blocked from importation, but doesn't know who's behind it and they won't take his bribes. Lastly, he mentions they keep confiscated goods in a guarded warehouse. Basim runs into Kong's competition Luca and says he can help locate the warehouse, but of course he wants something. He gives Basim directions and he arrives at the warehouse. He finds information relating to the harbour master, one of which a letter with instructions from the harbour master to search all foreign goods for a Chinese hairpin specifically. Another letter addressed to an Al-Kalulu who isn't too happy about not getting the hairpin. And finally, a third letter detailing the goods in holding to not be released until checks have been made, which includes Kong's items. With enough evidence linking the harbour master to the Order, it was time to take care of things. Basim heads to the fortress he accompanies and takes him out. Basim returns to Kong and gives him the list of goods to help him out. Kong held up his end of the deal and gave Basim an exclusive invite to the grand auction. Basim goes to investigate the aggression at the market and finds a perfume merchant being harassed by some guards. So Basim takes care of things. He rescues her and she says she was short on coin and that's why they came for her, but only because they decided to raise the tax recently. She fears her goods and camels have been seized due to them not arriving at the market as of yet, and asks Basim to check if everything's all good. Basim seeks Fulad when he enters the bureau to a fired up Ali. Basim learns that mercenaries took some rebels and executed them in public. Fulad believes this is the work of the Order. Ali, of course, wants to slaughter them all, but he is well known by the Order, so they will probably find him first. They're unaware of Basim, so he vows to find and take care of everyone responsible. Ali is on board, but they must know it was him who took care of things. Ali leaves and Fulad tells Basim to work quickly. Basim meets with Ali and they ride to a town called Jarjaraya. They reach a point where they go their separate ways, but Ali tells Basim to investigate the tea house and to find out what people know. Basim talks to one of the elders and he mentions that a rebel was talking to one of the slaves and then the slave disappeared and believes he's an acquaintance of Ali. He speaks to a civilian who claims his slaves disappeared. Finally, he speaks to the tea house owner who claims another slave disappeared from a farmhouse nearby. When asked how he knows this, he says he's friendly with the family and mentions the husband was executed and the son is missing, with the mother in worry. Basim returns to Ali to find he has one of the mercenaries taken hostage for interrogation. Ali believes the mercenary is associated with someone who's informing for the Khalifa. Basim seeks the widow the tea house owner mentioned earlier and offers his assistance. He attempts to sweeten her and loosen her up by relating to her situation and sharing his experience, which seems to work as she opens up about what type of flowers her husband got her. Basim collects the flowers and returns them to her. She tells him after his father's death, her son became very unhappy and started going out at night. Then he never returned last night. Basim investigates the son's tracks, which leads to a small building nearby, and finds a letter from the son saying he's leaving to the farm where the mercenaries are to fight. He returns to the widow and tells her about the letter when she calls her son foolish for such acts. She gives Basim a name for the farm nearby, Dogan's Farm, which is crawling with mercenaries. Basim finds the informant and tails him to the pier when Basim eavesdrops on the conversation and learns that him interviewing people is getting eyes from certain people, but no one knows about Basim, so the guard wasted his time along with carrying letters for the boss. Basim pickpockets the guard with the note and it's revealed that the informant and the guard were both gathering information for someone called Dogan bin Arslan. Basim returns to Ali to find the mercenary he was interrogating dead. Basim tells Ali his discovery and says something big is happening soon but doesn't know what. Ali knows what's happening though, due to the interrogation, that Ali's men are being interrogated and to be executed by the leader after at the villa. Basim heads to the farm and frees the rebels. Among the rebels, he finds the widow's son and he tells him to go to his mum, but he wants to fight with the rebellion since the death of his father. Basim regroups with Ali and they prepare an attack on Dogan. Once they execute Dogan and his men, Basim picks up a letter from Dogan showing his orders to report progress from his superiors at the officers club, with the letter naming Al-Ruk and Al-Ajma. Basim finds the stranded merchants from the female merchant we rescued earlier, and he speaks to the lead merchant who has no idea what happened but that something happened. Basim investigates and finds a horse's head decapitated, talks to a merchant who claims to have seen an individual in the night when the attack happened, another merchant who's concerned for the livestock, and a letter of intimidation to prevent the goods from entering the city. Basim presents his findings to the lead merchant and offers to escort his crew to the gates. On the way to the gates, they get ambushed by guards. Basim takes care of them and finds a letter from one of the guards ordering them to find the merchants and execute them out of fear of his safety, which was written by an Al-Ankar. Basim continues escorting the merchants to the rest of the way, and he talks to the lead merchant who mentions a rumor of foreign traders being dragged from their stall. He also mentions overhearing the guards refer to the tax collector as Al-Ankar. Basim heads to the officers club to find the members of the order.
Did you see that woman whose husband we took?
It is not unlawful to make her your slave. Oh, don't look at me like that. Allah has favored us, Jasur. Or should only the mighty Al-Mardikhwar enjoy such blessings?
Do not speak his name, not even here. Of all of us, he scares me the most. You know what he's like. If he learns of my past and finds fault, where can I run? I do not have the luxury of your ships, Nadir.
You may have taken liberties with truth in the past, but you have proven your loyalty many times. You executed those rebels recently. That was a task more cold-blooded than his ordering of it. Perhaps he should fear you.
It is your voice I hear, but the words are those of the Shaitan himself. Do not jest. I want no trouble when he returns.
Shaitan! That is high praise coming from you. It is as I told you. We are favored and need not fear anything.
Where is Duang? He is late.
As always, my friend, you worry too much. Which is why you are merely Al-Ruh, and I am Aeshme.
My apologies, generals. Doğan bin Arslan has been murdered, and we fear there is an intruder. We must get you to safety.
I knew something was wrong. Duang is never late.
Basim returns to Fulad and he tells him that mercenaries are everywhere and they're a bit pissed off. Basim presents his findings from the officers club, mentioning the 3 people who he discovered are linked to the order. Fulad asks if he discovered anything to identify them. Basim says Al-Ruk was called Jasor by his mate, when Fulad confirms and says it must be the Arab general who Ali also knows with not such a great past. Basim talks about Al-Ashma, whose real name is Nadir. Ali confirms and says it must be the admiral, who cares about his ships more than the people, to which Fulad co-confirms. Finally, Basim talks about the leader Al-Madikwar, who both Ali nor Fulad know of. If he is the leader, then he was the one behind the order of executing Ali's men. But their best bet of finding the leader is through the first 2. Basim heads to the harbour to find information on the admiral. He finds a shipment notice on a dead body inside a cage, saying all shipments are to be sent to a camp south of the river Tigris. Basim heads to General Jasor's location and assassinates him, but then he retrieves a letter from his body from Al-Madikwar to Al-Ruk, finding out about his past and wants a meeting at the Great Garrison. Basim heads to the tax collector's mansion and assassinates him once he finds him, but he investigates the mansion and finds a letter from someone who isn't happy his demands are being met, a second letter talking about a tax increase, and finally, a third letter approving the funding for the blockade of the harbour. Basim returns to Rebecca and Roshan at the bureau and presents his findings, in that they're looking for a foreigner outside of Baghdad. He has proof they're working for the members of the order. One uses the guards to extort the foreigners and the other seizes goods at the docks. Roshan is confused by the seizing goods part, wondering if they're looking for more ancient relics. Basim replies saying they're looking for a rare hairpin and that is going to be up for auction at the Grand Auction. With an official invitation to the auction, they got their way in. They start speculating on who the target could be and mention the informers hearing whispers of the Khalifa's treasurer. Basim meets Roshan at the market and lays out the plan, that he will pose as a merchant and bid on the auction. She's confident they will bid on it no matter the cost. Basim agrees and says he will gather information about the treasurer before the auction. Basim finds Kong and asks for any information on the treasurer, but as always he's not a real friend and won't give the info away for free. He says Luca took one of his items again and requests Basim to retrieve it. So he does and returns it to Kong. Kong gives information on the treasurer's appearance, saying 2 ladies made her a robe with intricate Eastern embroidery. Basim finds a foreign merchant and goes to his stall. He goes on about the wares he has for sale and mentions the hairpin that's his most valuable prize. When Basim asks for its location, he says it's going up for auction. He finds some ladies talking and eavesdrops on them. A perfume supplier is talking to a lady named Kabiha about the delay in the creation of the perfume, which she isn't happy about, and mentions the treasurer. They go somewhere private to talk more, and he discovers the missing ingredient for the perfume is blood. Basim speaks to Kabiha and she introduces herself as the woman behind the kina. She explains the ingredients behind this creation.
Rose, honey, sandalwood, and if you heard, a sliver of blood.
Blood. I should have guessed. I had thought it might be iron.
Blood is born from iron, is it not?
Certain ingredients make it hard to put into large quantities, she goes on to say. Basim mentions the treasurer and we learn that her name is Ning. The auction begins and the treasurer makes an appearance once the hairpin is brought out. Her guard bids, then the man in front of Basim, Basim himself, and then the man in front again, who wins the hairpin. Basim goes to the guard outside of where Ning is and says he needs the ivory coin brooch to get in. So he heads to the merchant's stall to steal the hairpin and obtains the brooch. The guard lets him in and he finally meets Ning.
You are a new face.
My name is Basim. New to Baghdad, but not to trade. I deal mostly in fine antiques and collectibles.
You must have a good eye for detail then. What have you brought me, Basim?
You know what I brought.
A man not to be toyed with. Come, show it to me. Exquisite. Ever seen something like this? So perfect. So delicate.
No, but I am surprised that you have not.
I do have a penchant for them. When I was but a child, my sisters and I would tie our hair with sticks, adorn them with stone. I pretended they were the rarest gems. We had nothing, but we felt that we had it all. There are many reasons why people see me. For advice, a taste of power, and most often, to win favor. Why have you come, Basim?
As a fellow collector, I have heard much about you from others. Your extravagance, your taste. I wish to learn.
Did they say I was lucky? I loathe the word. When I first arrived in Baghdad, I was one of many seeking my fortune. Now, I have even the East wrapped around my fingers. I clawed my way here when many gave up, preferring to spare their nails. But me? I don't mind a few scratches, a bit of blood.
Surely there have been connections. The people you met that helped you get to where you are.
No matter what others say, you only have yourself. No one else. Everything prospers when family is harmonious. Family? The word has no meaning. The notions, even more so. Only the self hears the deepest whispers of your soul and accepts you whole.
No one lives alone.
But we die lonely. In the end, we are absolutely, simply, truly alone.
Basim returns to Rebecca and they start going on about how everyone's talking about the events of the auction. Rumors spread quickly, Basim responds, while revealing the identity of the treasurer. The ladies aren't surprised she concealed her identity with how many people she must have angered. Rebecca continues on and says the upper echelon of the order must be concerned, wondering if they're next. Roshan asks Basim if he saw the genie again and he says it is gone now. She tells him to get some rest as they've still got work to do. Basim heads to Admiral Nadir's camp and lures him out by damaging his boat. Basim finds a letter on his body from Al-Madigwa about missing shipments belonging to the Turkic military. The Admiral was stealing. Basim returns to Fulad and mentions both the order members have been taken care of, but no word on the identity behind Al-Madigwa. But a letter from General Jasor did mention a meeting with the leader at the Great Garrison, and the Admiral questioned about the missing shipments meant for the military. Fulad comes to a conclusion of the identity behind Al-Madigwa.
There is only one officer of sufficient rank who fits. Warlord Wasif at-Turki.
Wasif. This makes sense.
Ali mentions Bessie was taken and Basim is surprised by this information. They come to the conclusion of where the leader is and where Bessie is held. Ali says he's going there, but Fulad warns him that if they challenge him and fail, it could start a war that could reach further than they'd like, and he'll need Basim. Fulad orders Basim to assassinate Wasif, but to make it look like Ali did it. Basim meets with Ali and they witness Wasif and the governor of Baghdad arguing. The governor seems to have given orders to Wasif and he wasn't having a bar of it. Basim suspects the governor of being a member of the order, but Ali refuses to believe it with him having so much spirit. Basim needs a way into the garrison and Ali mentions one of the stewards inside will help him out. Basim gets inside the garrison and meets with the steward. He escorts him to Wasif's location while Basim stays undetected. Basim reaches the inner garrison and finds Beshi, but then Wasif does this.
Better. The heft is good. The balance, too. The hilt is still a bit tight. Let us see if the edge is better. Whoever bears arms against us is not one of us. You chose the wrong side, my friend.
Judgment belongs to Allah, not you.
Basim gets inside the room Wasif is in and assassinates him.
Apt. Al-Mardikhwar indeed.
A feather. Isn't that ironic? Was it taken from an eagle who fell out of the sky?
A symbol of freedom. A word you did not use often. And never will again.
Oh. So this is freedom. Yet, I do not see any way out.
Basim and Ali fight their way out of the garrison. Basim returns to Fulat and Ali walks in saying the outcome of the assassination is what they had hoped. Basim expresses regret for not being able to save Beshi, but Ali says his story is already being told throughout Baghdad and will continue to free more people while he rests in peace. Basim mentions the dispute between Wasif and the governor, which Fulat finds odd and says he will keep eyes on the governor. Basim heads to the House of Wisdom to find the caretaker of books. He finds him tragically murdered. Upon investigating the murder scene, he finds writing in his blood that spells out Scriptorium. Basim explores the place and finds out someone is being held prisoner. He finds the guard captain to obtain the key and finds the prisoner. Once he frees the prisoner, he investigates the prisoner's living quarters and finds a letter mentioning the poem Arib, a note mentioning Zara and her location, and finally a book with a letter in it from Hunayn telling Zara he's struggling to translate the language in the book. Basim heads to Zara's scholar estate and finds another book of poetry by Arib and a letter linking her to the order along with an al-Rabisu. Basim waits on the rooftop for her arrival, and once he has the right angle, he goes in for the kill. A letter from Zara's body shows she believes the book she was getting the prisoner to translate would help them with their special project. Basim returns to Tabid and they banter with each other about sending spies out when Tabid mentions knowledge. Basim says knowledge is a tool that can be used for good or bad, and the Order is using it for the bad for sure. Basim presents his findings and talks about the House of Wisdom being the main hub for them to use an ancient book to build an evil device. Tabid says they call it the Great Work, meanwhile Basim says the Order are lethally experimenting on people and that he stopped it for now, but someone called Al-Rabishu is running things at the House of Wisdom. Tabid inquires for any ideas on who it might be, when Basim suspects Fazl Fahim, that the clues he's gathered tell him so. Tabid mentions the House of Wisdom are hosting a great symposium soon, which will include a formal gathering of scholars, a lecture, refreshments, chatter, and even the poet Arib will attend. Tabid says to go suss Fazl out, but don't do anything involving the blade unless you know for sure Fazl is evil and alone, and gives him the feather. Basim speaks to Karaman at the House of Wisdom to find Fazl, and he says his lecture will start soon. Basim eavesdrops on some poetry fans wondering where Arib is. One of them says she's in the garden taking in the perfection of nature. Basim finds Arib and introduces himself by reciting one of her poems and as a lover of poetry and chaos. Arib mentions Ali, who's a rival chaotic poet, when Basim says he loves the rivalry between them, that it enhances the craft. She concludes the conversation by saying she wants to get inspiration from the blooms. Fazl's lecture begins and Basim heads in. During the lecture, Basim reveals his hidden blade when Karaman whispers to Fazl about the assassinations of Zara and Hassan and urges him to hide until it's safe. The lecture concludes and Basim eavesdrops on some people talking to find out where he went. The man who was translating books for Zara mentions a hidden basement within the House of Wisdom and says maybe he's in there. Curious, Basim speaks to Karaman to find out more about this rumor. Karaman instantly shuts him down, but of course a little bribe gets him talking. At first he talks about leaving the House of Wisdom to get into the family trade before admitting there is a hidden basement. Basim speaks to the guard blocking the door and asks for a certain password. Basim eavesdrops on a distraught member of library staff who lost one of Fazil's books, which turns out to be a book on astronomy. Basim finds the book that contains the password and presents it to the guard, who then lets him in. Basim accesses the building's basement and picks up a disguise from a deceased prisoner to be able to meet Fazil.
You are new, aren't you? I don't recognize you. They promised you gold when you volunteered, yes? No matter. What you are about to behold surpasses all worldly riches. Don't be afraid. Are you afraid? This is my great work. I call it Arua. It will take you on a journey to another realm. Why did the first ones leave this world behind, filled with fools, I wonder, and make so few of me? We call this the House of Wisdom, but its foundations are unsound. For beneath the House of Wisdom lies the Dungeon of Ignorance, and upon such dark secrets we build our philosophies. Science is the noblest purpose. Knowledge is the greatest power.
No.
No? Then what?
Justice.
This may be the place. It may be here where lies absolute knowledge. It is not how I remember it. Behind the doors, it looked brighter.
But in the end, all we see is darkness.
Basim leaves the House of Wisdom and returns to the bureau to find Nihal sitting outside waiting for him. She says they've drifted apart since he told her he didn't want to see her again. She reminds him of the events of the Winter Palace and says you kind of forgot. Basim fires back with he keeps the past in the past. Nihal brings up the genie that taunts him in his nightmares to prove a point, and he says he feels its presence even in the real world. Nihal says she's a part of his reality too. She is his past. She questions if he will leave her behind, but he of course says he won't. Basim walks in and Tabit asks how it played out, but Basim says he will save that tale for a future campfire story. Tabit inquires if Arib the poet is involved, when Basim says not that he knows, but to keep an eye out. Basim wakes up from another nightmare to Nihal beside him. She asks him if his friends are aware that he's been hunted in his sleep. He says he could bear it if it was in his sleep alone, but it followed him when he left Ambar and stalks him when he slays those he hunts. They talk about the order and Basim mentions he's slain 4 of them, and Nihal fires back saying he should be getting answers instead of slitting throats, since the genie only strikes in his sleep and never came during the day until he reached into that chest. The conversation concludes with Nihal saying if he won't ask his enemies for answers, ask his friends and why they sought the contents of the chest. Basim returns to the bureau and finds Roshan inside. She points out his tiredness when Basim says he'll be fine once he goes on an adventure. Roshan goes on to say Ali thinks it's the right time to attack the palace because the spies are distracted and the people are divided. Basim asks how, when Roshan explains someone claiming the new Khalifa stole the throne from Abu Abdullah, son of Al-Mutawakil. She asks what he knows. Basim responds with not a lot. He was there at the palace the night of his father's death, but ended his sentence with him reaching into the chest instead. He He begins to take Nihal's advice and inquires Roshan about the contents of the chest and why it's so important and highly valued. Also to have the upper hand on their enemies. But before Roshan can respond, Fulad walks in. He asks for clarity on Basim meeting Abu's mother, Kabiha, to which he confirms. He suspects her, Arib the poet, or Muhammad the governor of having ties to the order. Roshan orders Basim to head to the round city and investigate the 3 suspects, but take no further action. He investigates Arib first and heads to her residence. He speaks with her patron and seeks a private audience with her. He attempts to convince him by mentioning one of her poems, but he isn't buying it and mentions her wearing a mask. Basim is confused by what he means when the patron starts going off about how he knows what we are and says she will no longer be a part of anything to do with us, and every letter she's had of us is shredded or sent back to the post office. Basim heads to the post office and finds a strange letter containing a line of poem that mentions Al-Talab and tries to link it to her and realizes she has a recital in the gardens and he could give the letter to her and see where it leads. He attends the recital and she calls upon him when he gives her the letter.
Seems there's no privacy in the public eye. How came you by that letter? Who put you up to this?
I work in the dark to serve the light.
I've met the men who serve the light. It seems its glare oft leaves them blind. Are your masters so blinkered and bumbling?
You were warned, you son of a dog. Come, Arib. We will set no tongues to wagging here.
Yours is the tongue that will not still itself, even when I beg for silence.
You spurned the counsel of he who raised you, and without whom you would still be nothing.
I raised myself. I authored myself. I have written myself into history. You are banished from my pages. Now be gone!
How can I leave you to wolves such as these? You're a woman alone, unarmed.
Words are weapons enough for me.
Then let us see what defense they offer. Take her.
There is somewhere the Sayyida needs to be, and you are delaying her.
Basim follows the mouse symbols until he reaches a residence with Arib in it talking to someone named Sarah. After a conversation between the two, Basim comes to the conclusion that Arib has no link to the order, but is rather an admirer. Basim investigates Kabiha, but can't enter the place without disguising as someone, so he eavesdrops on a conversation between Farah, Makira, and Nazrin to find out more eunuchs are entering the building. So he finds a disguise and enters the building. Basim gets stopped by the guard once he enters, then Makira walks in and he calls out to her, but then she struggles to recognize Basim and he responds shocked. She apologizes when Basim fires back with he has a forgettable face unlike hers. Basim says Farah is expecting him, but she terrifies him, so he requests to not make him late. Makira lets him in and he explores to find Kabiha's office, and when he does, he attempts to break in when he's interrupted by Makira. She tells him he's no eunuch and to leave the premises or she'll tell the others. Basim sweetens her up by saying, "You're a stewardess, right? You do things for people. When has someone ever asked what you needed? There must be someone or something." She begins to open up and says the guard has the hots for Farah and doesn't pay attention to her. She says Farah uses a paint to make her eyes bigger, and if she could have some of that to get the same attention she gets. Basim complies with what she's trying to say and wonders where he can find it. She replies with the storage room, but no one can enter apart from Nazrin. She trusts Nazrin with everything, even her magic potion. She has Nazrin carry it around and tells her when she wants a sip. It stings her breath and she wants to try it. Basim steals the magic potion from Nazrin and discovers it's alcohol. He also steals the eye makeup and returns the items to Makira. She appreciates the gesture but wants something else before she gives the key. There's a book called The Garden and the Mysteries which talks about biology, the body, and its secrets. It's how they know more than her. It's kept in the Khalifa's quarters on the roof, which is strictly forbidden. Basim is frustrated she didn't hold up her end of the deal and begs him to get the book and brings it back to her room. He reluctantly agrees and heads to the roof to grab the book and then puts it in Makira's room. He returns to Makira to find her having the effects of the magic potion which contains the alcohol and wonders if her eyes are bigger. Basim confirms and Makira starts going on a tangent, but Basim keeps on topic and demands the key to the office. Makira has other ideas though. Basim returns the potion to Nazrin and comes back to Makira. She's feeling the after effects of the alcohol and forgot what she was doing. Basim reminds her of the key and she remembers, but her reluctance insinuates she never had the key, but it turns out she was just playing around and finally gives him the key. Basim unlocks the door to Kabiha's office and begins exploring. He finds the hairpin from the auction and the perfume that was talked about back at the market. He leaves the office to find an incident going down. Farah is unconscious on the floor. The guards search Nazrin's room where Basim placed the book when Makira tells him the book contained information on studies on native herbs with a poisonous cosmetic to it. She explains her motive behind it was they were spreading lies about Kabiha, so she took matters into her own hands. Basim insults her and she says she's loyal. She will defend her in her absence. When Basim fires back with she's left and abandoned you. She confidently leaks where she's residing at the moment when Basim says you should not have said that. Makira, panicking, says it doesn't matter because he won't find her. Basim begins investigating Muhammad the governor. He speaks to the judge and he requests a document that his rivals have found that could have him dragged by his own court if he's to give info on the governor. So Basim retrieves the evidence and returns it to the judge. The judge says he's feared, respected and dedicated to the law, order. Basim, feeling like he got scammed, says, "Is that all you know? You work here. Muhammad keeps office here." The judge replies saying his office is elsewhere, not here, but he does keep spies here. One heads towards his office every day at noon. Basim tails the messenger to where the governor is, but to get into his office he needs a key. Basim retrieves the key off one of the guards peacefully and heads to his office. In his office he finds a letter from the Tahirids saying that the protection to Alamut is withdrawn at the governor's request, betraying the hidden ones. The governor walks in and sees Basim holding a piece of paper.
You can tell your masters I've had copies made. Shred that page, slit my throat. Our bargain stands.
My masters?
The Masked Cabal, the Order of... I don't care. Are you not in their service?
Are you not in their service?
I serve the Khalifa. I serve Allah. And I do it without hiding my face. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Why were you giving commands to Asif at Turkey, a member of the Order?
The brute was stoking the fire of 1,000 rebellions. Thankfully, someone spared me the trouble of putting him down. A hidden one, I heard. Are you the one to thank?
I read your letters. You forced your cousins to remove their protection from Alamut. You sold us to our enemies.
And brought peace to Baghdad. You've already helped yourself to the receipt.
Abu Abdullah's oath of allegiance. What does he have to do with anything?
His ambition would have torn the Khalifa apart. I offered the Order Alamut. They gave me assurance he'd threaten us no more.
So to trap a fox, you loose a wolf. The Order will see Baghdad burn, Governor. History will judge you for this.
History can hang me for it. I'll leave this world knowing that there is courage in compromise.
There is also cowardice.
How old are you? 20? I was about your age when I came to this city. Righteous beyond reproach.
What happened?
I grew up. If you really wish to spare Alamut, turn that blade on your enemies.
Give me their name. The one you brokered the deal with.
I could. But if you fail, then I die. And I'd prefer not to. Now, I have things to do. No hard feelings.
Basim concludes his investigation and considers the governor an enemy to the Hidden Ones. He reports to Roshan and presents that Arib the poet is innocent, but the governor not so much. He made a deal with the Order and removed his cousin's protection from Alamut. It was done in exchange of the Khalifa's son resigning his claim to the throne. He gave up his position of power to suit the Order, which is led by Kabiha. Basim knows of the whereabouts and says to Roshan if they act now, they could spare Alamut and request to do the honors of the assassination. She subtly denies his request and says she will do it. Basim, shocked, asks why. Roshan says he doesn't have enough experience to deal with something of this caliber. That the last time he entered a palace like this, he left it messy. But Basim fights it saying, have I not earned the right with everything I've done and proven myself? Roshan fires back saying a blow from one of them is a blow for all of them, and asks if his ego demands the honor. Nihal listens in on the conversation when Basim denies the ego claims and says it's his duty and he took an oath to leave his life behind. Roshan seems to be looking out for him however, but she eventually accepts his request and allows him the honors. Nihal chimes in and says who is she to deny you the honors and tell you when and when not to strike. Basim replies she's his master and mentor. If it wasn't for her, he'd be a corpse in the streets of Anbar. She fires back with, so you'll just do everything she says without complaint? She leaves the conversation disappointed in Basim. Basim finds a way into the palace using Ali's rebels to take on the guards. He gets inside the palace and gets a key off the guard. He enters the bathhouse and confronts the son about his mother's location, but he doesn't know anything. He continues on saying surely you know where she could be hiding, when he mentions a hidden passage inside the library. He recognizes Basim from that night at the palace, but Basim lets him live. Basim gets to Kabiha's library, but it needs a key, so he finds a eunuch on the bottom floor who gives him the master key that unlocks all the doors. He gets inside the library and finds the poem which is the clue to the hidden passage puzzle. Basim puts the last book on the stand and the passage opens. He enters and finds Kabiha. She runs with Basim following behind.
So many years spent searching. Combing ancient tomes and tombs. Tracing forgotten histories. Snatching at rumor and at myth. When all I needed to do was wait. For you to come to me. Our prodigal scion has arrived. Yet he knows not what he is. Have you not wondered at your nature? You, who see more, who know more. Even my son knew to ask what you were. When he saw your hand touch and wake the ancient's gift.
What am I?
Something more than man.
Enough riddles. Speak plainly!
Why speak what can be shown? Come with me to Alamut. Beneath its temple walls lies all the knowledge that you are heir to. Your so-called brothers would sooner die than see you claim it. But take heart, Basim. We will prepare the way. And set you free.
No!
What poison have you lapped at her lips?
She said I was something more than man. What did she mean, Roshan? What lies beneath the temple?
That is forbidden ground. There's nothing there for you.
I told you of the nightmares. The jinni. You called it weakness. Told me to mend it. I tried and tried, but you hid the way. You let me struggle alone!
Not alone! You are not the first to walk the shadows broken, Basim. Stitch your shattered pieces into a whole. Pour your pain into the Brotherhood. Purge yourself of the poison she dripped, and come home to us. No more than a man, but no less than our brother.
He escapes the palace and heads to Nihal at the hideout. When they meet, he begins telling her she was right in letting his enemies talk because Kabiha held the answers he was looking for, but was unfortunately assassinated by Roshan before more could be said. A truth Roshan sought the silence that is underneath Alamut. She says, let's ride for Alamut. He agrees but wants to go alone and wants her safe. She says, you need me. After some more convincing on her part, he just accepts that she's coming along. They set off for Alamut, and when they arrive, they are dehydrated and get to the river to hydrate. But then he notices the river filling with blood and notices a guard floating through the river, deceased. He looks to his right and sees an assassin getting murdered by one of the guards before he is then captured himself. Slightly conscious, he is rescued by what he believes to be Roshan. Basim has another nightmare where he's haunted by the genie again, but this time he gets close to him. He inevitably wakes up to Noor in his presence and says, it wasn't the welcome you were expecting, huh? Basim wonders what happened when Noor says Alamut has fallen. He was tasked with finding help, and that's when he went into the desert to find other patrols and found Basim instead. Basim gets up and calls on Nur to help him get rid of the infestation plaguing Alamut. But sadly, Nur has sustained an injury and isn't going to be able to do anything. Basim vows to make every last one of them pay. Nur says vengeance isn't the way, but to at least save everyone he can. Basim heads to the camp to find it overrun by mercenaries and members of the Creed captured, with one of the guards slaying a member. He saves one of his mentors, Rayhan, who was confused on how he's here and wonders where Roshan and the others are. Basim replies saying he came alone and that he knows the truth about the temple and what it holds. He was urged by his enemies to seek it as he can only unlock it. Rayhan puts the pieces together and makes sense of everything that's happened, because Basim is the key. Basim inquires on what's so important about all this and why is it being protected. Rayhan replies saying it's an ancient ground. It's been their duty to watch over it for generations to defend it from the Order who plan to exploit its secret. He continues on saying the temple houses its entrance, but even though it's forbidden, he's already checked and there's no means to access it. Basim fires back saying he'll find a way himself. Rayhan advises against it, but after some convincing from Basim, Rayhan is on board. Basim enters the temple that's overrun with intruders and takes care of them. Basim finds the secret entrance and notices a familiar symbol on the wall. He interacts with it and it reveals a door. But then he is interrupted by Roshan, who stuck to her word about taking care of Basim if he were to continue on this journey. Basim battles Roshan, which he becomes victorious in. Nihal shows up and tells him to leave her and go to the symbol. Basim says he didn't want to do this, but he needs to know. And then Roshan spits some worrying but motivational shit.
I do not want to lose you to what you may find in there. You do not have to look to the past to know who you are, who you can be. You can choose, Basim. Put your faith in me.
I tried. And in the end, you thought it best to control me. No different than our enemies.
Basim slices his hand to draw blood and presses his hand on the symbol to activate the door. Basim enters the temple and is blown away by what he's seen. He notices the same symbol on another door on the other side, and when he opens it, the most mind-blowing thing happens. Jesus Christ. That's a good device too.
I know this place. Nihal?
Oh, she just died.
It cannot be.
Why do I know this?
This is part of your reality, Basim. I am a part of your reality too. I will walk behind every step of the way. It was your idea to steal from the palace. Enough! Let me out of here!
How? What are you?
Look! See for yourself!
Celestials! Dim lighters are hostile! Save us!
That is...
Basim, back to his past self, sees himself in the darkness of nightmares to confront the genie that's been haunting him. He goes towards a few areas with Red before he decides he's ready to confront his past. Suddenly, a cell appears. He interacts with it and it opens, leading to a pit of darkness. He does a leap of faith and is face to face with the genie.
I know you now. I see you for what you are. A crippling memory from a past life.
Was indulged.
And that is where you will remain. It is over.
No, Basim. It is only the beginning. For us. For what lies ahead. A deeper understanding of the world we left behind. And our place in it.
All my life I wrestled with who I was. Who I was meant to be. And there you were. All this time. The side of me I resisted. A reflection of who we once were.
Of who we shall be once more. There is so much that awaits us. A new world. Let me show you.
I will never see you again, will I? Will I be alone?
You are never alone.
Basim awakes from what seems like a long dream and walks out from his slumber with fellow Hidden One members observing. Basim witnesses Roshan and Rayhan have a dispute where Roshan isn't happy with Rayhan's decision to help Basim seek the truth, so Roshan departs as a Hidden One. The game closes out with Enkidu scratching Basim's cheek and Basim accepting his past and who he is now. With the main story plot done, it's time to get into some questions and discuss why what happened in the story happened the way it did, and I think we all know the first question that's coming. If you played Valhalla, you probably already have an idea on what's happening, but being honest and transparent here, if you haven't played it like myself, you won't know that the story between Mirage and Valhalla are connected. Basim is already a character in Valhalla, and Mirage is learning Basim's past before he became a Hidden One. But who is Nihal? Nihal is a shapeshift of Loki. She was never real. She was internally part of his memories and consciousness. Everything she did was his doing. So who we saw inside that machine, inside the temple, wasn't actually Nihal. It was Loki who shapeshifted as her to guide Basim to him to free him from imprisonment, hence why she pushed for him to find the truth and talked about the symbol on the wall throughout the game, and why she knew she'd seen it before, just didn't know where. It's unclear if she actually didn't know or if she was acting so she didn't freak Basim out. Who was Loki? Loki is one of the gods, part of the Norse mythology culture, who's the companion to Thor and Odin. The Isus were a thing part of the Assassin's Creed universe before ancient human civilizations existed. They were the ones responsible for the creation of the pieces of Eden and the creation of the human race itself. Long story short, they genetically modified the early stage of humans and saved their memories by embedding them through a human gene pool that allows the memories to pass down generations as a form of genetic memory. The reason I bring this up is because throughout the game, Basim is taunted by a genie. This is Loki's past haunting him, and Nihal is Loki shapeshifted. At the end, Basim touches both the genie and Nihal, embracing the past and accepting his past as Loki and becoming reincarnated as him. What is the relic Basim steals and why is it being protected so much by the Order and the Hidden Ones? The relic is an ancient Isu relic called a memory seal. It has the ability to record and store the memories of their users, Isu or human. When Basim frees Loki, he grabs the relic and puts it on the ground as it displays an interrogation between a prisoner and a guard. It's unclear who these two individuals are, but the positioning of this memory cuts into Basim and the genie coming face to face with each other. There's also speculation this is Loki being tortured for attempting to kill Odin. Who are the Order of the Ancients? They're a secret ancient organization found by this pharaoh. They admire the Isu who used to rule an ancient society and believe humanity is at its best when they're controlled and made slaves. Their purpose is to learn more about the Isu and exploit their ideologies for world domination. This ideology conflicts with the Hidden Ones who are big on freedom and fight injustice. This is why the head of the order, Kabiha, gets offended when the Khalifa inquires about the contents of the chest, because if he knows then he could do something with it and it would take power away from the order. This is also why when Kabiha had the opportunity to kill Basim when he chased after her, he let him live because she knew he was special and could unlock the vault in the temple under Alamut. She knew if she could convince him to follow the truth and lead her there, she could manipulate him into letting the order rule the world. Until of course, Roshan kills her for good reason. The Hidden Ones were protecting the temple that contained an Isu consciousness. If the Order got access to it and found it, they'd exploit it and use it for ill intent, as I said before. Roshan fights hard to protect Basim from awakening the Isu consciousness, even going as far as to fight Basim because she believes he doesn't need it and is going to do more harm than good. And it's better to kill the past and stay grounded than embrace it. And also, the Hidden One's whole ideology is to leave your past behind. So Basim going on this journey was going against the whole ideology anyway. So because she couldn't stop Basim and lost the battle to him, she chose to leave the Brotherhood. Just over 2 years later, Ubisoft gave us a DLC for Assassin's Creed Mirage called Valley of Memory, which follows the story of Basim trying to find his father. It begins when Basim returns to a bureau and Dawish's son is there and says Dawish wants to see him. Basim goes to see Dawish and he shows him a painting that he got from a merchant that looks similar to Basim's brooch, which represents a city in Iraq called Samarra. The painting shows a house that Basim and his father used to love. Basim learns that the merchant got the painting and Alula. He goes on about how his father used to read him stories of that land and his monuments and said he'd take him to visit when he got older. But he hasn't seen his father since the day the government banned him from the country. Then he begins to question the possibility of his father still being alive. Dawish entertains the idea and says it's likely you're going there to waste your time, but the need is understandable. He mentions he's been there before on matters of commerce, when Basim asks Dawish to accompany him. He agrees and they ride off for Alula. They arrive and visit the cemetery to see if Basim's father has a headstone. After investigating, they don't find a headstone with his father's name on it, which gives Basim hope of him still being alive. Shortly after, he hears a woman startle nearby, who's called Hind. She was startled by Basim's bird, which he apologizes for, and learns she's there to visit her late husband. Basim notices her exhaustion and offers an escort home. During the walk back, we learn that her husband suffered chest pains which ultimately caused his tragic death, and she has 2 boys. They arrive near Hind's home when she spots a mark on a wall in front of them at her husband's warehouse, signaling robbers are there for her husband's valuables. She requests Basim to retrieve a small box that contains a painting from a wooden chest inside the warehouse and return it to her. She thanks him and says this is nothing compared to what they have stolen. Basim, curious, asks more about them. She explains that due to the lawlessness in the city, they can just do what they want, and if the Khalifa intervene, it doesn't end well for them. And because of that, they're feared among the community. Basim says she shouldn't stay in case they come back. She agrees and requests an escort to Nimlot's estate. On the ride to the estate, Basim inquires about the meaning behind the symbol, and she explains that it's used to create fear. She gives us a name behind the unification of lawlessness, Abyss. He grew up in the city, causing trouble and became worse over time. Basim inquires about Nimlot and we learn that he's a merchant from Baghdad and made his money in Egypt before settling into Alula. Allegedly a good man and is generous. They arrive at the estate and he meets Nimlot, but Nimlot seems intimidated by Basim with him being a member of the Hidden Ones. Basim reassures him by saying he didn't visit to cause any bloodshed, and then follows up by asking how he knows of the Hidden Ones. Nimlot goes on to explain he witnessed the aftermath of Basim murdering Al-Hul, which Basim replies saying the death was justified. Nimlot asks for his reasoning for being in Alula, when Basim says he came to Alula on a mission to search for his father. He wonders if Nimlot knows him, he says the name is familiar, but no. Basim mentions the painting he has from him that was likely stolen, and wants to know more about the robbers if he fell victim to them. Nimlot points him in the direction of the markets if he wishes to seek out information on the criminals. He concludes the conversation by giving him a heads up on how dangerous these criminals are, but understands the path he may have to take and will do the same in his position. Basim heads to the market and talks to one of the merchants. He makes small talk until one of the robbers in the background makes an appearance and he begins to follow him. The robber begins to run, so Basim runs after him to not lose him with other guards coming in, following until the robber stops and Basim realizes he's set up when he's surrounded by guards and is knocked out. Basim is locked inside a prison fort and meets the prisoner next to him when he learns that Abyss is the Caliphate. He also learns that he treats the prison like his own den and has his own chamber which he uses to create poisons to test on the prisoners. Basim wonders if anyone's tried to escape, to which the neighboring prisoner replies saying yes, many have tried, but have been unsuccessful in their attempts. Basim gets brought food by the cook while her and the guard talk about another prisoner who hasn't eaten in 40 days, which the cook claims to be barbaric. But the guard says he doesn't get to eat under the orders of Abyss. Basim goes to sleep and wakes up to his neighboring prisoner calling out to him to ask what he's in for. Basim says he's innocent and that he's looking for his father. The prisoner replies claiming he was the Calipha's architect and mentions where he resides, similar to the painting Dewish showed him. Basim makes sure he's certain and not just talking, but he says the Alula community is small and everyone knows everyone. Basim replies saying Nimlot doesn't know him, but the prisoner fires back saying he's rich, he doesn't care about someone like him. He concludes the conversation by saying if you want more information and answers, to escape from here. Basim overhears some guards talking outside his window and eavesdrops on them when they mention the rooftop. Abyss and some guards come in and they enter the cell of Basim's neighbor and hold him down to poison him. The prisoner fortunately survives the experiment, but probably not for long. Abyss tells Basim he's next. Basim begins to wonder where his bird Enquiries went when it shows up and pays him a visit. He asks Enquiries for help in retrieving the key to the cells. Enquiries finds the guard with the key on the roof and swoops down to pick it up and returns to Basim. He escapes and kills the guard to get some weapons and makes his way through the prison, taking on more guards until he reaches Abyss.
We tread this path as one.
Basim manages to just survive the poison and makes his way to Dewish before he sadly collapses. He is rescued by a civilian who calls for Dewish. Basim recovers from the poison and is fit to work again when he realizes Nimlot was right about the dangers of it all. Dewish mentions he sought after his father while he was away and the oasis came up. The same thing the prisoner said. Now that Abyss is dead and his men don't have a leader, nothing can stop him from finding his father now. Dewish offers to tag along, but Basim wants to go alone. Basim heads to his father's house, but there's a mark on the house meaning the robbers have been, but no blood. He investigates the house and reminisces through old times through certain objects, until guards rock up to his house talking about how they took his father. Basim fights his way out of the house and begins to track down the robbers. He notices a convoy in front of him blocking his path and takes down the guards. He speaks to one of the traders who says they suddenly appeared from the canyon. Basim follows the tracks to a camp where he finds a map and a note from a robber with a symbol on it they use to communicate. Further investigating, Basim heads to the next camp where he finds a prisoner who says he will help if he frees him. Basim finds the key and grabs it peacefully. Returning to the prisoner, he attempts to strike a deal, but Basim doesn't trust him to rat him out. He eventually just takes the risk and says he's looking for an old man who was recently taken, and the robber knows who he's talking about because he aided in the capture of him. Basim is confused by this because Abyss is dead, so who ordered the capture? Then the robber drops a bombshell plot twist.
Abyss? He was never a true chief. He answered to Nimlot.
Nimlot? He commands your band of cutthroats?
That's right. Though I've now parted from them, as you can see.
Do you know where the old man is held?
The robber knows where he's being held, but gives him a map because it's hard to explain, but the place serves as Nimlot's base. Everything stolen goes there, and is sold off by a network of friendly merchants. But to gain entry, he needs a whistle. He frees the robber and heads to the fort before blowing the whistle to gain entry. To get inside the fort, he finds a weak point in the rocks and blows it up. He heads through the tunnel to the other side and locates his father inside the heart of the fort. He finds a way in through the astrologer and takes his outfit. He walks in the fort and finds who he believes to be his father being tortured by a guard, but quickly realizes it's not his father. He speaks to the old man who tells him Nimlot is in the tower above, but you need a key to get in. And Kidu finds the key, and Basim again retrieves it peacefully and makes his way to the tower to confront Nimlot.
Astrologer, you are early, and I am busy with other... Let me correct myself. You, Basim, are on time.
Where is my father?
Where is my father? I could ask the same of you.
What are you blathering on about? You think you can use my father as a hostage to save your own life?
That was never the plan.
Then what?
To watch you suffer as I slowly slit the old pig's throat.
Why involve him? Your fight is with me.
Indeed! You truly have no idea, do you? Let me demystify it for you. A father for a father.
Your father?
What was it you called him? Al-Ghul?
You are his son.
Was, Basim. I was his son.
Killing Al-Ghul was an act of justice.
Ah, yes. The Hidden Ones and their moral high ground. You believe so fiercely in your spotless justice. But what of Ishaq ibn Khalid? You only know him as a memory. And yet here you are, ready to kill anyone standing in your way.
Your father was a monster.
Your kind never pause to consider the consequence of your deeds, do you? You think of justice as an end in itself, yet justice is consequence.
Where is my father?
As I said, you will kill anyone standing in your way. I stand in your way.
Father.
I know exactly what you're thinking. Can you reach me before I reach him? Of course, if my dagger parts his flesh even as yours parts mine, for me, it will be worth it.
Speak your final words.
Some months ago, after many years away, I returned home to Baghdad to see my father one last time. But as we were merely starting to rekindle our ties, you stole that from me. My chance to show him I had made something of myself.
Your father deserved death. You deserve death.
Who are you to decree a man's death, Basim ibn Ishaq? Your prize. Choke on it.
Basim goes to his father and talks to him, but sadly dementia has consumed him and he doesn't remember Basim, but he's aware he has a son. They sit together at the campfire when Ishak inquires about Basim's brooch and says he got it from Samara. His dad begins talking about how dark Samara has gotten and how he doesn't like how it's changed. Basim asks what he remembers of the city, and he says he's lived there all his life until the Khalifa banned him. He also remembers he has a son named Basim. He goes on to say he doesn't want Basim to suffer for his failures and says Basim has a future while he doesn't. Basim replies, why not say something? To which his response shows he still thinks Basim is a child and not the adult he is in present time. Before he leaves the city, he wishes to see the sunrise one last time. He believes there's a tomb out there like in Alula, but he never got the chance to witness the monuments of Alula, only what he's read in stories. Basim replies saying he was told the same stories by his dad. He asks his dad if he wants to see the sunrise from near the tomb, to which he agrees. Basim asks about his wife and he says he has no wife, not since Basim's mother. He describes how they met and where she came from, and while they're walking, he continues on praising her and describing her features. We find out that she unfortunately passed away due to a sickness early on. He sadly doesn't remember her name. He goes on to talk about the places he'd like to visit, including the Great Mosque of Cordoba and the ancient marvels of Alula. Basim says his father spoke of Qabr al-Sakra, a sacred dome in Jerusalem. He says it would be a sight, but it doesn't compare to the Great Pyramids of Egypt. They near the tomb when they share a final moment together.
I wish my son could see this. Basim, the one who smiles. He is a good boy. He will grow into a fine man one day. It is time. I must go. I will not be coming back. Tell my little Basim. Tell him one day, when his time comes, we will be together again. Until then, he has a life to live. Tell him that, if you see him.
I will tell him.
So, you have a smile after all.
Basim returns to Dawish at the camp and says his father is a mere echo of the man he once knew. But he remains thankful he got to face his past that not everyone gets to experience and looks forward to the future. This was probably the most mind-blowing piece of lore I've ever explored in a game, and I hope you enjoyed coming along on this journey with me, diving into everything behind it. Look out for the video on the Valhalla lore coming early 2026 to piece together the lore across both games. And if you enjoyed this video and the journey, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new for more content like this, and I will see you legends in the next one. Peace!